Shalom, welcome to Eretz Yisrael. I'm Shira. We have a little story that happened to me 32 years ago, and I remembered it just now as I was thinking, I was looking at the Parshat and Balak and Bilam and magic and Moses and the people and all the whole big story in Parshat Bilam. And I remembered this story that happened on Shabbat in Los Angeles. I was just beginning to keep Shabbat, right? I wasn't born religious, and I got into religion in LA, and good people over there, in LA. And there's this teaching that people said, if you keep Shabbat, Shabbat will keep you. Misha shomer Shabbat, Shabbat shomero, right? If you keep Shabbat, Shabbat will keep you. And so what happened was I came home from Friday night dinner, and I was not in a very good mood. There had been a rape and a murder of a Jewish woman in the area in Los Angeles, and it happened the week before, and I just heard about it. And it was very shocking to me, obviously, as it would be to anybody, that a single woman had gone home, somebody was waiting for her there, and a terrible thing happened. And I was all heated up. And I went out on the streets walking. Just walking, trying to clear the head. And it's a Fairfax neighborhood in LA. If anybody knows it, it's a very nice neighborhood. It's an old-time Jewish neighborhood. And I had family living there. And, it's a neighborhood where people know each other. And people are doing pretty well in life financially, let's say. A lot of big houses, fancy cars. And I'm out on the sidewalk outside my sister's house. And I just started keeping Shabbat, and I had remembered this teaching, Shu shomer Shabbat, Shabbat shomero. And someone who keeps Shabbat, Shabbat will keep you. And I'm walking down the street, and towards me are coming two guys. These two guys looked like they're dressed for gang activities, if you will. They didn't look like they had their Shabbos finest clothing on. But rather, they looked like they had some action in their mind. And they had that walk, that step, that walk that tells you they're up to something. So, it's a small sidewalk, and they're coming towards me, and I'm coming towards them, and I'm not a terribly skinny guy and take up a little bit of room, so I'm kind of, how that moment when you face somebody on the sidewalk, somebody has to make a decision, somebody has to be the nice guy and step aside. So I thought, okay, I'll be the nice guy. I start to step aside, and I look at these guys, and I see, these guys are really up to something. And I said, hello. They said, hello. I said, what are you guys up to? And they said, what are you up to? I said, well, I'm here, I'm keeping Shabbat. What are you up to? And they said, well, what are you up to? And it kind of went back and forth like that. And I said, well, it looks like you guys don't live here. And they said, well, it's none of your business. And I said, well, I live here, and it seems to me that maybe you want to move on. Now, around the corner was a convenience store, and anybody can go there today. It's still there. It's on 2nd Street, right near Beverly Boulevard. And I said, maybe you guys should move off. And they said, well, you should move off. So, it's just like this little word game we're playing. Who's going to be the bigger man? And so at a certain point I said, I'm going to finish this activity and just get back to Shabbat. And I said, okay. I just turned my back on them and started to walk away. And as I turned to walk away, now it was a cool evening, as it can be in LA at night, and I had this pretty thick coat on. And I turned around, and I turned my back on these guys, and as I turned, I saw one of the guys reaching for something. And all of a sudden, I hear a shot is fired, and I feel this ping in my arm. And I turned, and the guys ran off. And I'm saying, this guy just shot me. And I look down at my arm. I don't see any blood. I don't see anything because it's dark on the street there at night. And so I walked home, and I looked in the light of the house. I walked in the door, and I said to my sister, I just got shot. And everybody, of course, starts screaming. It's a little bit dramatic statement. I said, but it's okay. I don't even see a bullet wound. I felt something, but I can't find it. And I looked at my coat, and it was this thick, old English woolen coat, and there was a tear in it, but didn't penetrate. And then my nephews were young at the time. They ran outside, all excited, and they were looking around. And then, of course, the decision becomes, do we call the police? And, because we don't want to call the police on Shabbat unless it's a life and death situation. Now, right now, I did not feel that my life was in death, in fear of death, and I did not fear, what would happen to me. However, these guys had a gun. They were still running loose in the neighborhood. So I figured, well, maybe we should report them for the sake of somebody else. Now, I didn't know the laws of Shabbat very well at all. I just knew that someone had just shot at me and hit me, but the bullet, it must have been a pretty cheap gun, right? So it turned out the next morning, my nephew found the shell, and it was a .22 caliber, a small bullet shell. And I imagine, it was probably what they call a Saturday night special, a very cheap handgun. And it wasn't strong enough to penetrate the wool of that coat. But at the moment, we were worried about, should we call the police or not? And will they do something or not? And so I said, I'm going to feel better if I call the police. So I called the police, and I reported the incident, and I told them where it was. And they said, oh, yeah, we know that corner. We know that where those guys hang out. I said, okay, fine. So you should know that they're there and they have guns. And I'm sure for an LA policeman or dispatcher, that's like, oh, yeah, the people in the street have guns. What a surprise. So, that was the end of it. And, it's not like I went out on the street looking for them and I didn't go down to the end of the block to the convenience store where they hung out. So I wasn't looking for more trouble. But it did occur to me the next day, that I wouldn't have worn that coat except that it was Shabbat. It was a nice coat, and I put it on for Shabbat. I mean, it's an LA evening. It's probably about 60 degrees outside Fahrenheit. And it was one of these heavy woolen coats that you only wear, in Russia in the winter. But I put it on because I wanted to honor the Shabbat. And it occurred to me then that this coat most likely could have saved me from a real bullet wound. Had I not had it on and had just a shirt or something. So I felt like, wow, Shabbat really did protect me. Because for this honor of the Shabbat, I put on a heavy coat to look nice at someone else's house for Shabbat. And then the coat actually saved me from receiving that bullet. And it just occurred to me, that story. I don't think I've thought of that story for 10 or 15 years. And so it seems to me that it was something interesting, a little bit of drama to report, but we see that Shabbat itself is above time and space. It's above human will. It's a part of God's fabric of creation. And the idea of how do we show the world that we believe in God? By not doing something and not working one day a week. And so people are going to ask, why don't you work? Well, it's Shabbat and I'm a Jew. So people know that. And not working on Shabbat is a test my grandfather had to go through 80 years before then, when he got to New York from Europe. And people would work all week, and then they wouldn't work on Shabbat. They get fired. They have to go out and find another job. And every week that they went through this cycle until they finally found a job that they would be allowed not to work on Shabbat. So everybody has a test with Shabbat in the beginning, especially. You want to keep Shabbat. it feels like a wonderful thing to keep Shabbat, but it's not necessarily going to be so easy. There's always a test of our commitment to this idea of not doing. And the not doing becomes the statement, the true witness that we believe in something much greater than ourselves, much greater than an idea, a human idea that it's good not to work 7 days a week. You know, you talk to most people, they'll say it's good not to work any day. Let's stay on vacation for 70 years, right? But really, we see that God knows how to run the world, and he decided 1 day a week, let's keep Shabbat. And if we keep Shabbat, Shabbat will keep us. So God should bless all of you to be protected on Shabbat, and to keep Shabbat knowing that you have divine protection, and that Shem is with you because you put yourself out for him. He's going to put himself out for you. So God bless you all. Have a great Shabbat. And we should be together and keep many, many Shabbats. Bezrat Hashem. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great one. And we'll see you next week. Take care.